们今天要玩的这个有声音吗？喂。喂，有声音吧？小声。那我游戏关小一点。好，今天要玩这个克苏鲁游戏，不知道恐不恐怖
？I am writing this under an appreciable mental strain, since by tonight I shall be no more.
不需要自我介绍，不需要吧？没有，并没有出配信，没有人看要播什么出配信啊。
Penniless, and at the end of my supply of the drug which alone makes life endurable, I can bear the torture no longer, and shall cast myself from the... Do not think from my slavery to morphine that I am a weakling or a degenerate. When you have read these hastily scrawled pages, you may guess, though never fully realize, why it is that I must have forgetfulness or death.
老师会看吗？老师会看啊。游戏声音好大哦，我调个声音，死你妈先。
It was in one of the most open and least frequented parts of the broad Pacific that the packet of which I was supercargo.
哎，我不能走路哦，我就一直点。
The Great War was then at its very beginning, and the ocean forces of the Hun had not completely sunk to their later degradation.
对，过劳，这番眼接地气哦。
So that our vessel was made a legitimate prize, whilst we of her crew were treated with all the fairness and consideration.
匈奴。
So liberal, indeed, was the discipline of our captors, that 5 days after we were taken, I managed to escape alone in a small boat
他讲话
with
讲
water
很
and
慢。
provisions for a good length of time. 'When I finally found myself adrift and free, I had but little idea of my surroundings.
我就跑走
Never
了，
a
胆
competent
真大
navigator, I could only guess vaguely by... Of the longitude, I knew nothing, and no island or coastline was in sight.
这不就是海岸线？哦，没有，这不是海岸线。
The weather kept fair, and for uncounted days I drifted aimlessly beneath the scorching sun, waiting either for some passing ship or to be cast on the shores of some habitable land. But neither ship nor land appeared, and I began to despair in my solitude upon the heaving vastness of unbroken blue.
啊，他的绝望字体比较粗诶，
The change
看来是
happened
很绝
whilst I
望
slept.
哦。
Its details I shall never know, for my slumber, though troubled and dream-infested, was continuous.
很喘，很喘。
When at last I awoke, it was to discover myself half sucked into a slimy expanse of hellish black mire,
但是我的摄影
which
机没有
extended
很
about
好，
me in
所以
monotonous
没有很
undulations as
准。
far as I could see, and in which my boat lay grounded some distance
很
away.
恶心吗？还好吧，蛮好笑的。
Though one might well imagine that my first sensation would be of wonder at so prodigious and unexpected a transformation of
魔
scenery,
性，
I was in reality more horrified than astonished. For there was in the air
因为我在
and
准
in
备
the
讲
rotting
话，所以我
soil
嘴巴一直
a
打
sinister
开。
quality which chilled me to the very core. The region was putrid with the carcasses of decaying fish and of other less describable things which I saw protruding from the nasty mud of the unending plain.
无法描述的凸起物，听起来涩
Perhaps I
涩
should not
的。
hope to convey in mere words the unutterable hideousness that can dwell in absolute silence and barren immensity.
我是用一般
There
的
was nothing within hearing and nothing in sight
一般
save a
的
vast reach of black slime.
那叫什么啊？
The sun
就是摄像头，用 iPhone 会捕捉的最好啊，但我很穷。一般是用脸是用 iPhone 捕捉啦，或是用一般的相机，
as I crawled into the
看起来
stranded
就会
boat,
不是
I
很准。
realized that only one theory could explain my position. Through some unprecedented volcanic upheaval, a portion of the ocean floor must have been thrown to the surface, exposing regions for which innumerable millions of years had lain hidden under unfathomable. So great was the extent of the new land
他
which
在
had
攻
risen
山
beneath
回，
me
为什么
that
他
I
可
could
以
not detect
他
the
已经可
faintest
以
noise
推
of the
断出
surging
这么
ocean,
detail 的
straining my ears as I might.
地形
Nor
状
were
况
there？ any seafowl to prey.
他已经开始在胡言乱语18时。
For several hours I sat thinking or brooding in the boat, which lay upon its side and afforded a slight shade as the sun moved across the heavens.
是菊石兽。
As the day progressed, the ground lost some of its stickiness and seemed likely to dry sufficiently for traveling purposes in a short time. That night I slept but little, and the next day I made for myself a pack containing food and water, preparatory to
月色真美。
On the third morning, I found the soil dry enough to walk upon with ease. The odor of the fish was maddening, but I was too much concerned with graver things to mind. All day I forged steadily westward, guided by a faraway hummock which rose higher than any other elevation on the rolling desert.
没有 tackle 了。
That night I encamped, and on the following day still travelled toward the hummock, though that object seemed scarcely nearer than when I had first espied it.
笑死，这游戏免费的啊。
By the fourth evening, I attained the base of the mound, which turned out to be much higher than it had appeared from a distance.
我也希望等一下可以嗨起
An
来。
intervening valley. Too weary to ascend, I slept in the shadow.
不然我们来玩哈利波特好
I know
了。
not why my dreams were so wild that night, but ere the waning and fantastically gibbous moon had risen, I was awake in a cold perspiration, determined to sleep no more.
可是海都不会动诶，不对，这已经变地
Such
板了。
visions as I had experienced were too much for me to endure again. And in the glow of the moon, I saw how unwise I had been to travel
那
by
个
night.
怕怕也有不是限
Without
自
the
己的
glare
版
of the
本，不是
parching
吗？
sun, my journey would
你要
have
赞
cost me
助我
less
是
energy.
吗？
Indeed, picking up my pack, I have said that the unbroken monotony of the rolling plain was a source of vague horror to me.
啊，可怖，这是错字吧？
But I think my horror was greater when I gained the summit of the mound and looked down the other side into an immeasurable pit or canyon, whose black recesses the moon had not yet soared high enough to illumine. I felt myself on the edge of the world, peering over the rim into a fathomless chaos of eternal night. Through my terror ran curious reminiscences of Paradise Lost, and of Satan's hideous climb through the unfashioned realms of darkness. As the moon climbed higher in the sky, I began to see that the slopes of the valley were not quite so perpendicular as I had imagined.
是吗？
Ledges and outcroppings of rock afforded fairly easy footholds for a descent, whilst after a drop of urged on by an impulse which I cannot definitely analyze, I scrambled with difficulty down the rocks and stood on the gentler slope beneath, gazing into the Stygian deeps, where no light had yet penetrated. All at once, my attention was captured by a vast and singular object on the opposite slope, which rose steeply, an object that gleamed whitely in the newly bestowed rays of the ascending moon.
什么巨大的金属板？睡着了主播？你说你睡着还是我睡着？
For despite its enormous magnitude and its position in an abyss which had yawned at the bottom, I perceived beyond a doubt that the strange object was a well-shaped monolith, whose massive bulk had known the workmanship and perhaps the worship of living and thinking creatures.
那个吧，什么？
Dazed and
讲一下
frightened, yet not without a certain thrill of the scientists or
大石
archaeologists'
块。
delight. The moon, now near the zenith, shone weirdly and vividly above the towering steeps that hemmed in the chasm, and revealed the fact that a far-flung body of water flowed at the bottom, winding out of sight in both directions, and almost across the chasm, the wavelets washed the base of the Cyclopean monolith, on whose surface I could now
看得清楚的是什么吗？我是看不清楚啦。
The writing was in a system of
哦，然后放
hieroglyphics
大了。
unknown to me,
OK。
and unlike anything I'd ever seen in books. Consisting for the most part of conventionalized aquatic symbols such as fishes, eels, octopi, crustaceans, mollusks, whales, and the like. Several characters obviously represented marine things which are unknown to the modern world, but whose decomposing forms I had observed on the ocean-risen plain.
是克苏鲁。
It was the pictorial carving, however, that did most to hold me spellbound.
啊，痴迷的。
Plainly visible across the intervening water, on account of their enormous size, were an array of bas-reliefs whose subjects would have excited the envy of
我以为
a
讲话。
I think that
听不
these things
出来
were
吧？
supposed to depict men, at least a certain sort of men, though the creatures were shown disporting like fishes in the waters of some marine grotto, or paying homage at some monolithic shrine which appeared to be under the waves as well. Of their faces and for the mere remembrance makes me grow faint. Grotesque beyond the imagination of a Poe or a Bulwer.
不要听他讲话了。
They were damnably human in general outline, despite webbed hands and feet. Glassy, bulging eyes, and other features less. Curiously enough, they seemed to have been chiseled badly out of proportion. For one of the creatures was shown in the act of killing a whale, represented as but little larger. I remarked, but in a moment decided that they were merely the imaginary gods of some primitive fishing or seafaring tribe. Some tribe whose last descendant had perished eras before the first ancestor of the Piltdown or Neanderthal. Awestruck at this unexpected glimpse into a past beyond the conception of the I stood musing whilst the moon cast queer reflections on the silent channel before me. Then, suddenly, I saw it. With only a slight churning to mark its rise to the surface,
有东西要
the
出
thing
现
slid into
咯
view above the last, Polyphemus-like and loathsome. It darted like a stupendous monster of nightmares to the
大
moon,
猩猩，
about which it flung its gigantic scaly arms, the while it bowed its hideous head and I think I went mad then.
不要再打 L4D2 了。
Of my frantic.
我
I
们
believe
后
I
来有
sang
买
a
吗
great？ deal and laughed oddly when I was unable to sing. I have indistinct recollections of a great storm
他怎么
sometime
回
after I
来
reached the
的？
boat. At any rate, I know that I heard pearls of thunder and other tones which nature utters only in her wildest mood.
昨天早上做的吧。
When I came out of the shadows, I was in a San Francisco hospital,
Maybe.
brought thither by the captain of the American ship which had picked up my boat in mid-ocean. In my delirium, I had said much, but found that my words had been given scant attention. Of any land upheaval in the Pacific, my rescuers knew nothing. Nor did I deem it necessary to insist upon a thing which I knew they could not believe. Once I sought out a celebrated ethnologist and amused him with peculiar questions regarding the ancient Philistine legend.
可以走路的吗？不行。OK。
But soon perceiving that he was hopelessly conventional,
为什么要按生气的头？嗯。
it is at night, especially when the moon is gibbous and waning, that I see the thing. I tried morphine, but the drug has given only transient surcease and has drawn me into its clutches as a hopeless slave. So now I am to end it all, having written a full account for the information or the contemptuous amusement. Often I ask myself if a mere freak of fever as I lay sun-stricken and raving in the open boat after my escape from the German man of war. This I ask I cannot think of the deep sea without shuddering at the nameless things that may at this very moment be worshipping their ancient stone idols and carving their own detestable likeness. I dream of a day when they may rise above the billow, of a day when the land shall sink and the dark ocean shall ascend amidst universal pandemonium. The end is near. I hear a noise at the door, as of some immense slippery body lumbering against it.
这个描述真的是
It shall
美
not
食。
find me. God, that hand!
好丑，
The
真的丑。
window! The window!
这一段配音也太尴尬了吧 ！The window, the window。哦，他在跟我讲。然后他就数掉，然后他就数掉了。哦。现在，这爱继续会怎样吗？
I hear a noise at the door. It shall not find me.
是不是不一样啊？
God, that hand!
哦，好像一样。还是他的 DLC 啊？不要再 Window 了。所以我们的直播今天就这样结束了。我们结束了吧？我们看起来是结束了哦。21分钟。嗯哼。那我们现在。好一都还没来看，对，就结束了。可以打哈利波特 PVP， 笑死！那好，我可以改个标题。对，我改个标题哈。我要重开直播嘛？应该不用吧？ 他收不到他在干丢。他截取不到哈利波特。有了吧，有了。开扁，应该是我被扁吧。后来被扁了。我现在打到上面哦，几乎都不会赢。对方的头爹很中二。口爱玻璃手。也太很好玩啊！这么好玩的游戏是不是？我的卡山做拉式的，谁的？哇，被吸掉了。放只玻璃手，可爱。尴尬，是不是要输掉了？尴尬，尴尬，我要输掉了啦！输掉了。 我一直上不去。我的卡没有满等啊，满等不是15等还是多少啊？满等15等呢，我的卡都没有满等，超肥。这个起手是贝德。随便玩贝啦。哦，我的瓜拉好了，对方看起来应该不行的，感觉会赢哦。他丢歪啊，也被杀了。要死了！我要实况到几点？到4点好了。可恶的游戏太短了。我还以为我需要2次的直播才能玩完它。笑死！那我打开这游戏干嘛？哎呀！游戏大概讲多少？ 电脑版6G， 手机版应该比较小吧。不是电脑版，手机版比较小，对，手机版比较小。对啊，好扯哦！我要数翘翘了。哇，死了！不行欸。碰不到。对方看起来好吧，有水牢。被拉走了。哭啊！要输掉了。哦，你还没有看过《地狱之蛇》，它才是作弊卡。不行耶，3输才是作弊卡吧？ 背的。积分一直够 ，QQ。算了，反正也上不去了。
Don't even bother.
Inflating charm. A pugno.
Stupefy. Victory depends on the map. Help is spelling out. Stack of monster book of monsters.
Nimbus 2000.
Lift left. Stupefy.
Expulso. The Pisky.
Golden snitch.
A pugno.
Atmosphere charm.
Inflating charm.
Crucio.
Expulso.
Stack of monster book of monsters. Stupefy. Golden
I
snitch.
won't. You sure you can do this on your own?
Niffler.
I won't let you fight alone. I'll patch you up.
Atmosphere charm.
Expulso.
Keep going. You got this. Stack of monster book of monsters. Stupefy. Golden snitch.
Pisky.
Niffler. Crucio.
Spellion. Spellion.
Atmosphere charm.
Expulso.
Golden snitch.
Pugno. Nimbus 2000.
Just get this over with. Stack of monster book of monsters.
Inflating charm.
Atmosphere charm. Are you? Obviously, you're not thinking clearly.
Expulso.
Monster. Crucio.
要赢了吗？要赢了吗？要赢了吗？哇，赢了！好了，我们今天的思考就结束了，赞啦！再见，各位，再见，拜拜。